Good morning, everyone. It is 12 noon and time to get our meeting started. And to start the meeting off, has anyone signed up to make public comment?
Yes, for general public comment, we have Juliana Evans.
Have you signed in for that?
Yes, I've got her down here.
Okay, very good.
I'm sorry, Juliana, if you'll hit that button, it'll turn on your mic so we can catch you. Thank you, ma'am.
That'd be the green light then.
There you are, green light.
Good afternoon. I wanted to speak to something that arose at the previous ASAC meeting in March, and it related to Mr. Horton asking a question about a finder of a dog not being the owner if the dog was microchipped. And Morgan, you said, sure, I think that's fair, and that you'd never experienced a finder being considered the owner rather than the person who the dog was registered to. Well, back in February, a dog was found and it was taken to the shelter. It was found on the 1st of February. It was taken to the shelter on Monday, the 3rd of February. It was scanned at the shelter. It was found to have a microchip. From the chip, the shelter staff determined that it had previously been redeemed by its owner, so its owner was known to the shelter. Notwithstanding that, and notwithstanding the finder not being told, well, we've got managed intake or we've got closed intake, she was told by the shelter staff that they could do absolutely nothing to help with regard to that dog. She was also told that one of the reasons she couldn't be helped was because the owner lived outside of San Angelo city limits. The dog was clearly and demonstrably not her dog. The dog was brought to the shelter even within the 3 days. I wonder why nothing was done for that lady. She was told to leave the shelter and take the dog with her. And I know I'm only allowed to comment, so my comment is I don't understand why that would happen, especially given that at the December council meeting, it was stated that the shelter didn't expect finders to do all the work and that the ASOs would do the door knocking, would do the follow-up, would find the registered owner, the microchip, and especially in this case where the dog had previously been redeemed and was already known. So my comment is, I don't understand why that happened at all and whether it happens on other occasions. It just doesn't seem to be good enough if someone's gone to the trouble to bring the dog to the shelter. You can identify the dog, but yet you still send the finder away and say, with the really weird comment, you live outside city limits, we can't help you. It's like, you know, when I came here from New Zealand, if I found a dog on Cottonwood Street and brought it to the shelter, I wouldn't have expected you to say, you're from New Zealand, can't help you, go away with the dog. So I wondered if that could be addressed at some point. Thank you.
Thank you. Juliana, would you get me if you have any details of, I'm happy to review it.
Will that be addressed publicly or?
So the definition of owner is on the agenda for the May ASAC meeting. We just had a number of items to get through for this meeting as well. So it was requested for an upcoming meeting and it is scheduled for May. So we'll have a more in-depth conversation on that, but we're also happy to review specific instances in the meanwhile.
Should I repeat that in the May comments section?
You're certainly welcome to, absolutely.
Is there any other public comment?
No other
No.
public comment.
All right. Well, moving forward to the consent agenda, are there any committee members who would like to pull any items for review from the consent agenda? If not, I'd seek a motion to approve it.
I'll second that.
I'm sorry, Jatan, can you turn your mic on?
I move to approve it.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Well, with the second, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Moving forward to the regular agenda, item A, discussion and possible action regarding monthly shelter performance for March 2025. Presentation by Interim Director of Neighborhood and Family Services, Morgan Chinwood. Did I pronounce it right?
Chadwin.
Chadwick, sorry.
You're good. All right, so I have the details for our March activity for animal services. First, we had 220 new animals come in. 114 were adopted or transferred, so some really stellar performance there. 30 animals were redeemed by their owner. 9 were wildlife that were released back to their natural area, and we had 51 animals deceased. I do have some more detail on that in just a moment. So all species left in custody, we were at 234 dogs. I'm sorry, all species, dogs, cats, and I believe we had 1 sheep at month end. So we had 75% of our animals released alive. For our new arrivals at 220, that can skew heavily more cats than dogs during certain seasons. But March was the first month of the change in intake practices. And so we did have just our first full months of data to report back. So dog intake was up about 49% compared to the prior March, as we looked at, supporting San Angeloans through that change in policy. So more dogs coming in, there. We had 51 animals that either died in custody or were euthanized. The vast majority of that, 39, were dogs. And 33 were aggressive, reactive, had some kind of history, and 18 were sick or injured, including cats and wildlife. 4 animal services officers, they responded to 368 cases. Of course, 223 of those were some kind of stray response, dog at large. 68 were enforcements and rechecks for going out for suspected violation. 41 were wildlife relocations. Some of that was wildlife that were injured and transferred to an appropriate rehabber. And some of that was deceased wildlife pickup. The bulk of that was deceased wildlife pickup. So we had 26 bite investigations, so we did see a decrease there. That's a little below average for us. And we had 4 transports for whatever reason, medical transport. Sometimes we're meeting owners with their pets, so a small amount of our volume comprised of that activity. And then a total of 6 owner released. And so this would be anything that was part of a case, anything in the field. And so we had 2 that were just owner releases accepted in the field from animal services officers, and 4 that were seized under a court order. So that's the total volume of cases they had for March.
Morgan, would you help us with a definition of rechecks? What does that mean?
Sure. So the bulk of that is going to be failure to spay neuter. So of course, and we'll talk about that this more in our next agenda item. But of course, on first interaction with a citizen, they're going to receive a citation for failure to spay neuter, and they're going to enter their court process. They're going to make whatever plea. They're going to come to fruition with however that court case ends. But they are subject to still having follow-up that if the animal is not exempt, or unless the animal is proven to be spayed, neutered, proof of compliance, then they are still subject to recheck. So even if you were cited for failure to spay, neuter in February, we can go out again in March and cite you again. So that's the majority of the rechecks. It's also secure enclosure, distance for livestock. So, for example, if you have chickens and you don't have distance to have chickens, we're going to give you a deadline to get compliant and move those chickens off property. And we are going to follow up in a recheck, a follow-up of that original case to confirm compliance.
Thank you.
Those are just a couple of examples, but it's any kind of follow-up, not an initial case.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions about the March 2025 services? All right, moving on then to agenda item B, discussion and possible action regarding the Animal Shelter Facility Improvement Project, presentation by Interim Director of Neighborhood and Family Services, Morgan
Chadwin.
Chadwick. I'm sorry. And Construction Manager, Al Torres.
Morgan, do you want to start or do you want me to?
Sure, I'll kick it off briefly, and then Al has lots more information to share. But for the animal shelter improvements, it's really it evolved into being two projects. So there's the major renovation to the existing facility, which includes a whole new HVAC for the building, roof replacement. Our roof is beyond its useful life, a plumbing overhaul to the general kennels, all new general kennels, because we have to demo what's in there to get down to the plumbing underground. And then phase two of that renovation is making our current garage into a proper animal intake room, installing a proper garage as like a sally port for ASOs to be able to pull into, making over our processing room to be a proper exam room, and changing out our tame cat kennels in the lobby to be optimal for the current use. So that's the major renovation to the existing facility, but we also have the make ready of the temporary facility, where we have essentially an empty building that's metal walls with concrete floor that we're trying to retrofit for kennels, plumbing, and HVAC so that we can live there for 8 to 12 months while we do those major renovations to the existing facility. That's kind of just big picture what the project entails. So some of on the major renovation, some of the delay, and Al has more notes on that, but one, we've had a significant engineering delay due to the electric load. So when we contracted with the engineer, or engaged the engineer, Friesen Nichols, and I'm sorry, Al, I'm stepping on a little bit of your notes, but when we first engaged Friesen Nichols to do the engineering for the property, they get from AEP as the state endorsed provider of electricity of what is the electric load at this address, what is the electric availability, and they provided a number. And since Contra Valley Paws moved out, since the jail, since the fire training center, that record hadn't been updated. And so when the engineers were actually getting into the detail of this remodeled HVAC system is going to be a significantly higher electric load than what we were currently using at the facility today. And so there's additional work needed to be done on the engineer's side. So they're needing to design that additional electricity service. They needed to get us a new task order because that old contract had actually expired with Friesen Nichols, so we needed under the new agreement. And so that task order is complete, and it's awaiting signatures. I believe legal is routing it through for everybody's signature, and then once that's complete, the purchasing division can issue the purchase order so that Friesen Nichols can continue that work to finish out the design of that part of the property. And once engineering finishes that, their documents, then we can engage a general contractor. And there's a variety of ways we can do that, but that'll be a big landmark, a deadline that we've met once engineering finishes their work. That's what I have on the major renovation. And I'll defer to Al. Al's been, of course, very involved as the city's construction manager and does have some more information. Can I throw it to you for some more updates on the?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Morgan. Al Torres, construction manager. Actually, she's covered it all, so if you have any questions, I'll go sit down. She has really done a good job of kind of covering all the bases. I was going to go over the scope of work, but she's pretty much got it done. As you know, the animal shelter facility is in dire need of repairs. It'd be nice if we could just tear it down and build a whole new one, but we're going to try to do what we can with what we've got. I want to make clear that we are not increasing the number of kennels. In fact, the number of kennels is actually dropping a little bit because we're putting in larger kennels. A lot of the kennels there are pretty small. What we're doing is trying to increase the quality of the conditions there at the animal shelter. We're working on the air quality. We're working on being able to, the trench drain, or the piping drains right now are undersized. A lot of them are broken. They don't drain properly. So we're going to replace all of those with a brand new trench drain system that's properly sized. It goes to the outside. The large dog kennel, we are going to subdivide it into 3 separate rooms rather than one large room to kind of cut down on the noise. We're also going to drop a ceiling in there to make those spaces smaller, again, to cut down on the noise. sound absorbing tiles, all that to try to kind of help with the noise. With the air quality, we're putting in a brand new DOAS unit, dedicated outdoor air system, basically state-of-the-art ventilation for the whole facility, not just the kennel, but for the whole facility, but especially for the kennel, which really should go a long, long ways to helping with the odor problems that we have in there. The dog kennel is the majority of the work. The large dog kennel is the majority of the work there at the animal shelter. We are also remodeling the cat kennel area, making it kind of a more open space. We are also redoing the lab. The existing lab is outdated, has some stuff in there that, I mean, we're going to put in new stainless steel furniture, get rid of that old bathtub that's in there, and just kind of modernize it and upgrade it. Like Morgan mentioned, the existing garage, we're going to basically convert it to kind of like an intake center, and add a new garage just on the outside, basically duplicate that same garage on the outside. That'll be used as a sally port to bring dogs into that system. And again, like she mentioned, some of the issues we had issues that, because this has been going on for a long time. So some of the issues that have slowed this down, engineering issues, the fire alarm system came into question. That took us a while to get that worked out. The electrical transformer is an issue. We just now finally got that worked out, and we're got a new contract with the engineers. And the existing HVAC system has gone out. So that's another thing that's kind of, we're scrambling to try to figure out how to address that to get this temporary shelter done so that we can move dogs sooner than anticipated. Although we think we have a temporary fix for that. So all of this, like Morgan said, one of the key questions in the construction work we're doing on the animal shelter is what do we do with the dogs while all that's being redone? We talked about originally about doing it in sections, but really that's not an efficient way to do that. So the contractor said he'd rather do the whole. The contractors that I've talked to, we haven't assigned it or awarded this to a contractor, but the contractors that I've talked to said it'd be better if they worked on the whole thing at once. So we need a place to put the dogs while we're doing that. So we came up with the idea of a temporary shelter somewhere. And what we're looking at is the city has a building, the old fire training center. There's a couple of empty metal buildings over there that we're looking at using. Because these are temporary, what we came up with was we are building some elevated concrete slabs. They're just wide enough to put kennels on top of, and putting a pre-sloped trench drain down the middle of those slabs. That way, once we're done and the new shelter's done and the animals can be moved back, if somebody else needs to use that building, they can go in there and just tear all that back out, rather than us. If we saw cut into the existing slab and put trench drains, that kind of limits what future people can use that building for. So we're trying to keep that in mind when we do this. Some of the issues we've had over there, again, HVAC and lighting weren't considered part of the original budget, so we're looking at what we're going to do there. And the main sewer line is not where we thought it was, so that's another issue that we're working with. The budgeting, I think Morgan can speak more to the dollar figures. We had $232,000 budgeted for the temporary shelter and 1.5 for
We had, for the major renovation, we're right at about $2 million budget for that project. $1.6 million was issued in debt and about $400,000 in surplus sales tax.
Okay. So that's where we are. I don't know if you want to go through some of the slides.
Sure, because Al does have additionally the site plan for the properties, and so we can move into that next. Do you want to?
Yeah, so this is the site plan of what's there. In particular, down at the south end.
And I'm sorry to clarify, this is the existing shelter, the major renovation.
Yes.
Thank you.
Down at the south end of the building, you can see that's where that DOAS unit, there's a blow up in the upper right corner. It's a pretty big unit. It's going to be right there where the existing outdoor play yards are, but up in the upper right corner, I have kind of redone it so that we still have play yards on the outside, so she can still go through those exterior doors and have some space outside. Can you go to the next slide? So this is the shelter as it's going to be laid out now. You can see the large dog shelter. It is actually, there's 113 kennels there. The existing has about 120 kennels. The difference is that the existing shelter has a lot of smaller kennels, which for the larger dogs don't really work as well. These are all primarily larger 5x5 or 5x6, or even some larger ones. The cat kennel area, you can see how it's kind of being opened up rather than being inside that room. And then the two shaded areas, those are, I have them shaded because they were coming from a different fund, but you can see that's where the lab is right there. Those temporary doors on the left, those are being taken out. That was an old system where you could drop off your dogs. That's not happening anymore, so that's going to be the new lab area. The garage right above that, that's going to be the new intake, the new intake area. And then the new garage above that is going to be a sally port. They can come in. Then if you have questions about these as I go, feel free to ask, but go ahead and go to the next one. So this is the existing kennel. You can see how a lot of those kennels are very small and compared to what we have now. It's a little hard to read, but this is just the existing drawing of what we had. Go to the next one. This is the engineers.
I have
yes.
a question. On that previous slide, not that one, the next one. On the existing, I see the doors opening on the kennels. What's the space that's in between?
They're also kennels. They're just, the architect just, for whatever reason,
Okay.
showed every other door, but they all have doors.
Okay.
And then this is the, the engineers have a bunch of drawings. The drawings are essentially almost complete, other than finishing up the electrical design and some other questions. But this was the trench drain design, just to make it clear what they're doing. As opposed to the temporary shelter, on this one, we were actually saw cutting the concrete, pouring new concrete with new trench drains, working with the existing slopes in that slab, because right now the slabs are sloped towards where the drains are. We're just putting a new system that's all sloped towards those trench drains. And then they all lead to the outside, to a new drain on the outside. Okay. So this is the old fire training center where the temporary shelter, this is what we're looking at right now. You can see the shaded areas. The building on the right is the old fire station, which we have gone through the process to get DHRC approval and permit approval for change of occupancy. So we're going to use that as a temporary office while we're there, or Morgan is. The other two buildings that are shaded there are the two vacant buildings that were used as classroom, storage, a gym. They're now vacant, so those are the buildings that are going to be shelters.
How many kennels are going to fit in the temporary?
The temporary kennel is going to have 104 kennels.
104. Okay.
So that's, and I don't show the kennels actually laid out. I'm just showing the raised concrete floors. Those are either 5 feet wide or 10 feet wide. The ones that are 10 feet wide have kennels back to back. Again, all of these kennels are 5x5. The kennels are going to be purchased and put together in-house by Morgan's group. Everything else will be done by a contractor. And again, these trench drains are done on these elevated slabs that are just sitting on concrete blocks, so that once we're done, all that can be removed and the building can be restored for someone else's use. Everything's going to drain towards that area between the two buildings and then go out to a main line that goes back out north towards the street to connect to the existing sewer line.
Did we have to put in a new sewer line?
Not in we're going to have to run a new sewer line from here along the edge of the building. The existing sewer line we assumed was there, or that's what we thought it was based on where cleanouts and things were. But it turns out the existing sewer line is running under the building, which is not allowed anymore. So we are having to run a new sewer line along the outside. But that's the way we had it designed from the beginning anyway, because that's what we thought it was. So.
Okay.
And then lastly, this is the office building. The only thing we're doing up there is putting in, Fire Marshal wants to put in exit lights and exit signs where appropriate. Otherwise, we're going to pretty much use it as is, as a temporary office. So that's all I have. If you have questions on where we are, what we're doing, what our process is, I'd be glad to answer.
It's sort of a boilerplate question, but I'd love for you to tell me that everything we're doing with the new shelter, with the rehabilitation of the shelter and with the temporary shelter is designed to meet any and all city, state, and federal standards for any animal services or containment.
To my knowledge, yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We've been diligent about that.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, I am a licensed architect, so basically everything I do, I have to check into everything that I can and find out as far as state standards, handicap or otherwise. So yeah, I go through those and check everything.
And then on the animal shelter requirements, Al has been very receptive to when I say the code says this, so we've got to have that. Absolutely, no question asked. That's for sure included.
Well, in the past, we haven't, on the new shelter, is there going to be adequate power and water for the commercial size washer and dryers? For
Yes, the engineers are all looking at
Well, no,
all
we're
of
not going to
this.
install commercial washers and dryers. We had looked at installing those, and there's nobody, it's the servicing of them after the fact that we are hard on washers and dryers, and the kind of laundry that we are washing is harder on an element. And so you either need to have a service agreement or someone on staff who can do that work of maintenance and repair of that equipment. And so there's nobody local that provides that service. We would have to get somebody out of town. So your other big commercial groups in town, last time we talked to them, we said, how are you handling commercial level laundry? And they said, we just have our own maintenance team on staff that's certified and trained in maintaining that equipment, and we wouldn't have the capacity to include that. So the laundry is not a consideration in this renovation.
Thank you, Morgan. I misunderstood your question. I thought you meant washing of the kennels.
No,
with the
I
hose
meant
reels.
that.
Okay.
No, and like you talked to like a laundromat, local like the wash pot, do they have their own maintenance? Is that what you're talking about?
Correct.
Okay, they have their own maintenance, okay. And the electrical that y'all had to do, when you say it wasn't equipped, I guess is
The
basically.
transformer is undersized for how many people are using the
And is
transformer that's
that
there.
on the electric co-ops, the electric company's dime, or is it, since it's a transformer?
No,
and
it's probably going to end up being on our dime. And so it's a yes, it's a both. I mean, the AEP will work with us on some of that, but it's going to cost us somewhat. I don't know at this
Yeah.
point what it
We're
might cost
increasing
us.
the load, and the biggest draw on electricity that we're changing is the DOAS, which is a really important component of this project to improve air quality. Just changing out the air conditioning units and ductwork and any of that would not address the air quality. So the DOAS is a really important component of the project. Was not a term I had ever heard of, but it's because of the type of work being done in the facility, and because we're housing animals 24/7, it's the only thing that Al and I have seen that would appropriately handle the air quality at our facility, which has been a permanent issue since we opened. So that is the main thing, I think, increasing the electric load, and so we will have to have an upsized transformer to be able to accommodate it.
Well, you'd brought up the jail and pause adding, is that something that would be on the electric company since they had added to the load out there? I was confused because you brought that up.
We're
and-
increasing the load beyond what's currently there, so we will have to be part of the improvements to increase it. The jail certainly increased to get to their level, but they took some of what was already there, which was perfectly appropriate to do. But this project is what's driving the need for additional electric service, so we will be the ones making application to AEP to ensure that's handled.
And we'll know more once the engineers get back into the design and let us know what's needed.
Okay.
I just have a quick question. Right now, when is this scheduled for?
Right now, if everything works out as planned, we're looking at a completion date of probably February.
A completion
2026.
date?
Yeah.
So when are you about to start?
If everything works.
Yeah.
So basically, we have a new contract with the engineers. They've listed 12 weeks as additional design time to get their portion complete. So if that, based on that 12 weeks, council approval, the first meeting in August, go through permits. So we're looking at construction starting in August.
In August? Okay, thank you.
In August, and then you'd said before.
Yes.
Y'all be in the temporary shelter from 8 to 12 months. Is that what you said?
No, the temporary shelter, on that one, we're working on pricing with the
But being
contractor.
in the temporary shelter.
Oh, yeah. We're hoping to be in the temporary shelter about 3 months after May, so August.
And then, but
Start,
you'll
start,
be
be in there.
occupied-
Yeah, be in
occupied
there
for
at the
8
time
months?
that the other one starts construction.
Okay. It said 8 to 12 months. I was wondering how we were going to be finished in
And I'm probably
February.
referencing an old timeline, but that is, Al has the latest
Yeah, that was
information, so I
based on the
apologize.
latest numbers that we've gotten, so.
Okay. And then the Reese and Nichols is the current engineer, and is that who we're
Correct.
still using?
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
And interesting to note that original floor plan, when it was first built, they were the engineers on that project as well, so.
Could we go back to the slide where it shows the location of the temporary shelter? Based on where the temporary shelter is located, and it sounds like we're building a permanent facility that we're going to tear down.
So there's
I
a,
mean, you're pouring concrete and building kennels and sewer lines and all that goes with that.
so there's an existing facility that is gutted. There's nothing in it. It is concrete and metal walls and a roof. So we would be outfitting it with kennels, which will retain ownership of and are currently using some of them, quite frankly. But we would be pouring concrete. That, I think, is the major sunk cost, that we would be pouring concrete to be on a raised platform for the kennels for appropriate drainage and plumbing. And that is probably not very transferable to whoever uses this building next. But we're not building a new building. There's an existing structure that we're retrofitting.
Well,
The-
to my point, and looking down the road somewhere, because of where that's located on city property, is there anything that anyone on this committee or you, Al, would you see any reason why that facility couldn't be leased or sold to local rescue when we're done?
It could be leased or
It-
sold
It could very
to
much, yeah.
anyone, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why we're.
Well, I don't know if there's any restrictions on the land where it has to be city-owned. I haven't done that research. The
Yeah,
city is.
that's out of my purview too,
It's
but
probably
I
been
don't think
70 years
so.
since we acquired and installed that facility. So, but yes, it is transferable to a number of uses after.
But the intention is very much for this to be a temporary location. The concrete slabs we're talking about is a thin concrete slab on top of concrete blocks that are just run in rows with just basically to give us the elevation to put the trench drain without having to saw cut that existing concrete. That way, when we're done, they can just bust up the concrete, get all those concrete blocks out of there, and they're back to square one.
Well, my only reason I bring that up is because it was kind of brought to my attention by a person who's engaged in local rescue here that they thought it might be a good idea to continue utilization of that facility somehow.
Well, I guess that's a discussion that could be had, but if that would be the case and we wanted to look at this as a permanent, we would do things differently.
Sure.
Are there any outdoor facilities at this temporary?
Well, not small exercise yards. That entire area is fenced, although my understanding is there's breaches in the fence, but I mean, those could be mended.
Is there that corner that we could, the building that runs this way, if that, because
Yeah.
I know if there's breaches in the fence, that's a big fence to fix, but even that corner that's on this side, could we secure that fence and put in a fence for,
I don't have that shown in there, but we could very easily put in a chain link fence or something.
That's a long time
in a
for
small
no
area
outdoor.
to give the dogs an outdoor play yard. That would be Morgan's call.
Yeah, it's just the staff to run enrichment, because even at our existing facility where we do have play yards, we don't have the staff time to run enrichment. So it would be an additional, so one, it's already an additional drain on staff to stand up to sites. So we would just need the additional staff to offer enrichment as well.
when they go to, I was going to ask that, does the new facility have outdoor? Like I see some of them that have their permanent kennel with the door and then a permanent outdoor for each kennel. Do we have any of those kennels like that out there?
Not in the facility we have now, or that we're remodeling, because the whole facility wasn't designed that way. When we were looking at a separate building, I had shown the guillotine doors on each kennel to have a yard outside, but that's not the route we went, so.
Yeah, the project that was approved was purely the existing footprint, making the existing facility
More livable.
functional. That the HVAC is currently not functional, the plumbing is currently not functional, and the roof is not currently functional. So that is why it's a limited investment in the current facility. It's not, we're calling it a shelter improvement, but it's not any more or bigger or than our current facility. It's in the same footprint, same service.
Is there any way that they can, at a later date, what are those walls, exterior walls made of that the kennels butt up to?
Right now,
Stone.
they're concrete, actually, the outside walls are tilt-up concrete panels, but most of the building is concrete block.
Okay. When do the animals go outside at all now?
No, not in our current staffing.
Okay. I'll ask more later when it's more of an agenda.
Yeah, and there are 2 outdoor areas existing that are there now. It's just a matter of, like Morgan says, staffing. They don't have the time or the manpower to get them out there.
And they'll be maintained. We're not losing those.
And those are going to stay the way I've got it laid out. But again, it goes back to the staffing.
Okay.
Do we have any other questions for Mr. Torres?
Yeah. So the temporary facility is waiting on the sewage line to be
No,
put in?
we're talking to a contractor to get it priced.
And so
we're
y'all
waiting
are
on
ready
that.
to go to bid?
Yeah, we're waiting on that to see where we're at on that project.
Okay, so are the plans final?
Yes, this was what's there. It's a fairly simple plan, so
So Al designed it in-house.
Oh, okay. They're construction documents and they're
Yes.
ready?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then in the new facility, we're waiting on the electric still.
The engineering work.
yeah, we're waiting on we're waiting on the document, the contract to be routed for signatures. And once that's done and a purchase order is issued, then the engineers will finish up their design, including the electrical system. They had some other finish up stuff to do, their ductwork and things like that, but they're essentially complete except for finishing up the electrical.
Okay. Do we have a timeline that we're pushing for that?
Well, their contract says 12 weeks
Okay, from,
whenever we issue the purchase order.
no, but I mean, how long do we have a deadline for them to get finished with their documents?
12 weeks.
Yes, ma'am, 12 weeks.
12 weeks. Okay, and that's starting when?
That starts when we issue the purchase order. Basically, we're signing a contract with them, and once that contract is signed by all parties,
To do the
Mr.
documents?
Valenzuela,
To do,
Morgan.
finalize the
yes.
plans? Okay,
Once that's signed by everybody, then a purchase order is issued and a notice to proceed is issued to the engineer. And at that point, he has 12 weeks to finish this design.
okay. And then we had something finalized in April, or a week or two ago.
Mm-hmm.
What was that?
The task order from the engineers.
Yes.
Okay,
And that's what's being routed for signature right now.
okay.
And once it's signed and executed, we can issue a purchase order and a notice to proceed.
Okay. I think that's. And it'll go out to general bid?
We're working through
Yeah,
that.
that's up to council. The contractor I'm working with is a TIPS contractor, which is sort of like a buy board contractor, but that's council's decision on how they wants to go.
And we did have a pre-bid meeting in anticipation for going out for proposal, and they're wasn't enough interest to do it within our budget, which is why we pivoted to Tibbs. So we've met with maybe 4 general contractors at this point to get an interested individual who can do it within budget.
Okay.
That I guess we can say that's part of the delay as well, is finding a contractor willing to do the work within budget.
And so the numbers that you gave a while ago, the 2 million for the shelter to include the sales tax, is that what you said?
No,
You
there's
said-
no sales tax.
There was 1.6, well, I didn't think so, but it
Oh,
said 1.6.
she was talking
The
where the
funding
funding is
sources.
coming from.
We've received $1.6
Oh,
million
okay.
via debt and $400,000 via surplus sales tax collected. So the major renovation to the existing shelter is right at about $2 million budget, and the temporary shelter budget is $232,000. 200,000 of that is the construction, and 32,000 is the operations while we're there. If we can recruit additional staff, since we're standing up 2 sites, the utilities, for running that facility.
Okay, and that was all already approved?
Correct, yeah, the
Okay,
budget's approved.
okay.
We couldn't have done any of this without the budget.
Okay.
So now we are in the purchasing process of design and construction.
Okay. I think that's all.
Is there any public comment signed up?
No, not for this topic. But Jatan, when you speak, can you pull your mic down so we can hear you? Next time, thank you.
I tried.
Well, again, thank you for inviting me. If you think of other questions, I guess you can route them through Morgan, or feel free to call me.
Thanks for your time.
All right, thank you. Doctor?
Moving on to item C, the regular agenda, discussion and possible action regarding enforcement of spay-neuter ordinances. Presentation by Interim Director of Neighborhood and Family Services, Morgan Shegwood.
So as requested, we have an agenda item before you today to kind of walk through our current process for spay-neuter enforcement. So animal services officers at their first contact with an owner, and this could be because we're out there doing a investigation of an alleged violation. It could be because they are redeeming their stray pet from the shelter. It could be when there's been a bite event, anything like that. So just when we're having our first contact with the owner, spay-neuter is what's enforced above any other violation. And so the owner is cited for failure to spay-neuter on all eligible items in the case or in the household for all eligible failure to spay-neuter. So for example, if they have 2 mature dogs and 6 8-week-old puppies, we would cite for the mature dogs and then follow up, do a referral probably to Contra Valley Paws Mommy and Me program, and follow up in 2 months when those puppies are old enough to be spay-neutered. So that's part of the rechecks that you're seeing as well on enforcement. But at that time, they're given a citation for failure to spay-neuter, and they get a warning for any other violation. So for example, if they also are not rabies vaccinated, they would just get a warning for that with a deadline to provide. We just want that first contact to prioritize spay-neuter. So any subsequent contact, so if we have a second interaction with you, whether that animal comes back into the shelter or we're following up and doing the recheck and you're still in violation, at that time the owner would be cited for all eligible violations. So if the animal was at large, if they hadn't rabies vaccinated it yet, if they hadn't microchipped it yet, and failure to spay-neuter again at that point if they were still in violation. That's unusual. Most folks are rehoming the pet after that first citation, or getting it spay-neutered, or providing whatever exemption, but that we prioritize the enforcement of spay-neuter over any other violation. And so, of course, maybe we've all had a citation before, and so just as a reminder, it is simply a promise to appear before municipal court. And at that point, when you do appear before the court, you may enter a plea, and you may enter a plea of guilty or no contest and pay the fines. At that point, you are subject to future citations if you still maintain ownership of that pet then you would be subject to future citations for failure to spay neuter. You can plead not guilty and request a trial. The judge and jury would consider evidence, assess a fine. In that instance, the animal services officers do testify to, confirm ownership, confirm spay neuter, and certainly the owner of the pet can present their evidence as well. The owner may also ask for a dismissal, and so they can show proof of compliance or progress towards compliance, because when you receive a citation, you have to appear before the municipal court within 14 days. And so you may say, well, I've gotten my dog scheduled for a spay, but it's 5 weeks out, or it's whatever. And so the municipal court would consider that and just have continued follow-up with the owner. So proving some kind of compliance with with that they are making progress toward their spay neuter, or they have achieved spay neuter, or they have purchased a low-cost voucher from a rescue, for example. Any of that can be brought to that first appearance at municipal court to say, look, I'm making progress, and that's ideal, right? Or they can provide proof of exemption. So by and large, your average pet, cats and dogs over 4 months of age have to be spay neutered. But there are exemptions that most of y'all are familiar with. So for example, if the animal's medically fragile, let's say you have a puppy that's 4 months old, but it's really quite small, or it's recovering from some medical thing, or certainly just a statement from a veterinarian stating this animal is too fragile medically to undergo surgery. Well, certainly that's an eligible exemption, and that could be permanent. For example, if you own a senior dog with epilepsy, that could be a permanent exemption, that it is not recommended to undergo sedation for a procedure like this. Or it could just be a temporary exemption, like when this puppy is this weight, or when this kitten is this age, then it would be, that exemption could be lifted, and we just simply defer to veterinary professionals to weigh in on that. It's an easy thing to provide. Other exemptions include, if it's a show dog, if it's a police canine, if it's... there is an exemption. It says you may be exempt if your animal is a service animal. Most of us that know, service animal certifying organizations, it's perfectly acceptable to have your service animal spay neutered. So we would just need something clarifying why that animal needs to be intact. So you can provide, so at that first visit, you can provide your proof of compliance or proof of exemption, and that would essentially close out the case, and that's a best case scenario, right? You may also show indigency. The municipal court does have regulations about, if somebody is being cited and these fines, these fees are beyond what they can handle, then they're dismissed as well. But that doesn't get the pet spay neutered, and that's our biggest concern is, should somebody who's proven indigent by the court be able to own their pet? Well, they're going to have a pet. Let's at least help them invest in having a pet that is spay neutered, is vaccinated. And so certainly through this process, we're also doing referrals to low-cost vouchers, working with them towards compliance, getting them access to resources so that they, if you're going to have a pet, let's at least have one that's compliant. Let's get you through a free microchip clinic, just whatever it takes to get you in the good. But that municipal court process does allow for that.
Morgan?
Yes, go ahead.
Excuse me. Do you have any data on, month by month, how many people were cited? How was it resolved? Was it something where they just paid a fine? 10 people paid a fine, 30 people actually got their pets spayed or neutered out of the 40 people that got cited that month. Something like that, so we kind of know where we understand where the blockage is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we certainly have the data on citations written, and we can request that from municipal court of unfortunately, most of these options take a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not uncommon that we cited in December and that case maybe wasn't closed out till February.
Right.
And so they'll be carrying cases on their books that we maybe aren't in our same reporting month. And so I can certainly request that data as well from the municipal court and get it to y'all.
Appreciate it.
And so once any of those court proceedings conclude, then an animal services officer can inspect and cite again. We simply need a new violation date that, on December 10th, I cited you for your cat being unaltered. I believe it has been through the court process. Whatever you pled, we still see that your cat is intact. So we would cite you again at that point to just start the process over. And so one thing that I think we all find frustration with is that, citations don't get the animals spay-neutered. It's just a tool to encourage folks that this is serious, it is important, and you'll continue to face consequences for being in violation if you don't ultimately address this. And so that's our current spay-neuter enforcement process. As requested, and I'll certainly get you all that data, but any other questions you have, we're happy to.
You mentioned that they are subject to rechecks. So how do you determine who you'll recheck, or are you rechecking everybody?
We recheck everybody, but it's not uncommon that someone has moved outside city limits. Certainly, that's an exemption. And so it's also quite common that, we call, we knock on the door, we ask to see your pet again. They're not answering, right? Because they have already received one citation. They see our truck and our logo, and they're like, nope, I'm not going through that again. And so we can cite in absentia as well, but we just need confirmation that that animal is still intact.
Gotcha. Okay.
So everybody's being rechecked. Admittedly, there is a backlog. We were functional at about 3 animal services officers for several months. We have recruited a new candidate that started April 1st, and we are hopeful we can get another employee in for May 1st, and that'll go a long way towards working through that backlog of rechecks and additional citations. Because we do recheck everybody, but there is admittedly a backlog, maybe a 60-day backlog.
Okay, thank you.
What prompts the initial, them going out and checking any of this to begin with?
Any violation or redemption across the front counter. So for example, if an animal services officer responds to a bite event, they're going to do the bite investigation. That's the most important thing. But when they release that animal from quarantine, they get a citation for failure to spay neuter right then. Or you're redeeming your pet as stray across the front counter. You're getting a citation for failure to spay neuter. So it's by design a reactive enforcement. We are prohibited from just knocking doors and asking to see the underbelly of your pet. But it's because we had some interaction with the citizen for some other reason.
So if there's a
Dog
litter,
at large.
if there's a litter of puppies, you can see visible from the street. Is that a reason for them to stop and ask?
Well, we can knock on the door, but puppies under 4 months of age are not required to be spay neutered. So that in and of itself is not a violation.
Okay.
A litter of puppies is not a violation. Do they have an unaltered female in there? Well, we certainly all have our opinion, but again, we can knock on the door, we can leave a message, we can try to contact, but we don't have proof to write a ticket, and we don't have confirmation of who the owner is. If it's just, hey, I'm standing in your front yard, I might know who the property owner is, I might know who the water customer is, I might know who lived there 2 years ago when we were here last time, but I have to be able to testify in court of who the owner is and who is in violation. So we do that by visibly, speaking to the person and getting their driver's license number ideally, or getting their driver's license. And I need their DL number and their date of birth so I can say, this is the Morgan Chegwin that's in violation, not Morgan Chegwin that lives in California, right? Like we have to know exactly who we are citing for it to stand up in court, and we have to have a violation date of, I see your pet, it is not spay neutered, we are going to write you a citation. So I have to be able to confidently identify who is the defendant and identify the violation both at one time. So puppies in a backyard, insufficient evidence for a citation. But certainly, knock on the door, try to make contact, do a referral, and they get a citation for any animals that are eligible. But that's not commonly how these tickets are written.
Thank you.
Is there a veterinarian now at the animal shelter? Full-time? Paid
no.
by the city? No.
There is not a full-time veterinarian. We have a contracted veterinarian, a professional services agreement to hold the licenses for our DEA, for our controlled substances, and place their license on file for ordering other meds and drugs. But that individual is required by contract to do, I think, once monthly inspections. So it is, we do not have a full-time veterinarian. We do not have a staff member that's a veterinarian.
Are you looking into that? Is that something that budget-wise possibly can happen?
I definitely think that there are some improvements and changes needed in our current process, and I think we'll be, I'm so sorry, bringing those to a future meeting, especially with some pending legislation and some changes that are coming. We want to make sure that we are on top of that and still supported. So I definitely think that's something that could come to this group at a future meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions for the spay and neuter enforcement? So I want to veer off the agenda for just one quick moment, because I know that at least one of our chairpersons has a hard stop in about 5 minutes. And it belongs in follow-up and administrative issues, and I would ask for a motion from anyone to have Morgan, who carries the weight around here, produce a monthly meeting list with holiday exceptions and, you know, all that goes with that, similar to how city council works.
Do you mean a change in the meeting schedule?
Yes. change
So
it. Yeah,
adding-
to actually print the meeting schedule, so we're all on it.
So I've emailed the meeting schedule that y'all may print, and it's currently,
Just a meeting schedule, actually as close to consistent with the third Thursday bylaws as we can. And just produce that meeting schedule, and then email it out to everyone so we have it.
and so what I've produced so far is what was minuted. This group said we want to meet January, March, we just added April. So if there are additional dates you want to add, that's what the motion needs to be.
The motion would
Because we
be,
have
yes.
provided it and it's available for print, but if you want to add additional meetings, that's what we're needing in a motion.
The remaining year, monthly.
Sure.
So are you asking to move to monthly meetings or?
Yes,
Or are
that's
you-
essentially yes.
You're looking for a motion to add June, August, October, and December.
Yes, we should probably meet in November too, but that needs
That's
to
already
be
set.
flexible because our third Thursday is going to be Thanksgiving.
No, so the November meeting's already set,
Oh, it is?
and it's not Thanksgiving.
Okay, very good.
So that's adding 3 more months, is that what you're saying?
1, 2, 3, 4, if there's a motion.
And we're moving to monthly meetings. We need a motion for that?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, if we can continue this discussion after we open it up to see if there's any public comment in regards to the discussion and possible action regarding enforcement of spay and neuter ordinances
Yeah, let's finish up
that
that
was
item.
presented.
Is there any public comment?
Thank you.
We could still do that even if we have the hard stop for the person, whoever it is that has to leave in 5 minutes. Would still have quorum.
We have one public comment, Juliana.
Okay. Just going back to the discussion about the court process when people are cited, and there are a million reasons why that takes forever, and it's very cumbersome, it seems to me, and it's hard to follow it up because of time delays, because someone's got a court date and then they say, oh, I broke my leg, I can't appear, or then they say, my leg's better now, I'm back in court, oh, I've got an appointment 3 months down the track to get my dog spayed, or whatever. And you commented a lot of people are indigent. Is there any work done on, you would have to collate the outcomes of the court citations, but it's a good point that you can't get blood out of a stone. If someone does not have the money to spay or neuter their pet, and you said, well, we want to get those people in compliance, comments are made often, we have a shortage of vets. I don't think we've got a shortage of vets in San Angelo. I counted them up, and when I call to make a vet appointment, I can call 3 different practices and get an appointment within 2 days. So can any work be done? If you've got these people who genuinely can't pay, and I understand the arguments for people going, I'm not paying because they're not paying, but is it not cheaper to get a pet spayed or neutered? Just say, this person clearly hasn't got the money, without them going through the court procedure, because some of them are identifiable. Just say, let's get the bloody thing spayed or neutered and be done with it. It's another dog that is not creating another 10,000 dogs over the next 10 years. Could any work be done for that? Because it seems we waste an awful lot of time and taxpayer money to get to a point where we say, well, we can't do anything. And then you've got to go and find out, that person or that bunch of people that we did that haven't got any money, we've still got, by the time we get to the end of this process, half of those dogs have had puppies again. And we're in a much worse position instead of just paying $100, $150, getting the dog spayed and neutered. I mean, isn't that better for the taxpayer, better for the people, and better for the dogs? So my comment is, could someone have a look at that? Maybe having a special program, because just putting people through a court system, it's expensive. We've got the court clerks, we've got the judges, we've got the follow-up. We probably spend $500 going through that procedure when $100. I think, Jatan, you can get a spay or neuter.
What was the question?
Around $100 to do a spay or neuter.
Probably a little more
Okay,
on a large female.
Let's say 150 for a medium dog.
150 probably would, if you
so
go
why don't
through
we
the...
spend $150, get the dog spayed and neutered, get the whole thing off the books, free up the court staff, free up the ASOs, and resolve some of the problem that way. It's cheaper, it's quicker. Just my comment.
Finding the money through the city and recommending the city to come up with some money for some vouchers. And I think we talked about that before, the possibility of getting the city to come up with some of the money for even free vouchers. And of course, they could go through the process of verifying income if that's what they want to do. Because like with the voucher programs, I'm not sure what your voucher programs are, but I know Critter Shack's vouchers are not income. We don't check that, and we can't because of the privacy where we're selling them at. We can't check that, but recommending the city come up with something, even I think about somebody that goes to has to go to court, and I say, no, you got to get this, and then the only solution is to get them fixed to avoid being recited. Is there public service that they can do to work off part of the voucher fee? Is that something, I know, or is that more of a punishment? Like I know when I was younger, I got a ticket one time, and I had to wash windows. I did a pretty good job, but was that really earning money, or is that just a punishment? Is that something that's available? Public service for coming up with some of the money for the voucher?
Yeah, they can go and clean the kennels on a Saturday,
Yeah, the city standing up its own voucher program is a complex process, but certainly. The city standing up its own low-cost voucher program is a complex process, but certainly anything's possible. I think it's difficult when Animal Services is tasked with, and we talked a bit about this, the subcommittee that has been assigned to review barriers, that if the city is the one tasked with doing the enforcement, I just believe firmly that that's got to be our role, that we can't also be the ones saying, or you could do this additional program. It feels a lot like, buy this voucher or sign up for this program or we're going to cite you. Like we just need to have a clear definition of what Animal Services role is, and if our role is enforcement, then we do the enforcement and we do referrals for the voucher programs. And if the city can invest in that's in an existing program and take advantage of that that infrastructure that's already there, but the city to set up professional services agreement, have contracts with different veterinarians to fund it, to administer it, is a big ask on top of a team that's already maxed out on what it can do. So it would just be an additional service, and that city council may consider that as part of the budget cycle, and it has been requested in the past. So, anything's possible, but it hasn't been approved in the past for, a number of reasons.
I think not putting the voucher purchase directly under animal services, it be more of a, the permits office or the, wherever they go to get approved for HUD or benefits, WIC benefits or anything like that, because all that's income relevant. Is there a different place that you would suggest to put that under?
That's our office.
Huh? That's what?
Our office. So the Neighborhood and Family Services Division administers WIC nutrition program that includes an income verification.
Not under animal services, because it would be just a simple purchase if that's what they want to do for the voucher.
Sure, as I mentioned, anything's possible.
I
and
understand what you're saying.
I definitely
not sound like
recommend.
blackmail.
All any of us want is for owners to have pets that are spay neuter. And so anything's possible, certainly.
Okay.
I wonder if we can talk more about this at the next subcommittee meeting.
Yeah.
I feel like it fits nicely in that category.
Okay.
So is there any more discussion on spay and neuter?
Or a public comment, we're wrapped up.
No more public comment.
No public comment?
No, sir.
Well, then I will ask for that motion for the enhanced meetings. For the, I know you wrote it down, Morgan.
To add June, August, October, and December.
Yes. I'll second it, I guess.
I'll second it.
You'll second it.
I'm sorry, I need a motion. You'll be my motion.
I will be the motion.
And Jen, you second it?
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. Sorry about that, but now we can move on to item D. Discussion and possible action regarding public education and community outreach.
And I apologize, but I just found out about this meeting last night, so I wasn't able to clear my schedule.
Absolutely,
I do have to
understood.
run.
Thank you
If
for your
you're
time.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Presentation by Interim Director of Neighborhood and Family Services, Morgan Chedwigan.
All right, so as requested last meeting, we do have this agenda item before you to talk about education and outreach. And we, as the subcommittee had their first meeting about barriers, we wanted to prioritize education and outreach as the first way to combat barriers. So first and foremost, we believe that animal services' role is to build rapport, connect with citizens, create a culture of positive and supportive progress. It's not uncommon that those of us that worked in animal welfare for a long time, or a common statement made even at council meetings is, well, people are the problem and people need to be made accountable. And we would argue that people are also the solution, that we're looking for folks that we can work collaboratively with. We want to find solutions to these really complex issues that we face, that it's never a matter of a simple violation of you have an unaltered pet. It's also an issue of dog at large, or your dog bit somebody, or your cat doesn't have a rabies vaccine. It's a bigger picture than any one single issue, and we are seeing this. We serve in animal services, and so we see that side of it, but it's really a bigger picture of socioeconomic, culture, so many things that really impact the households that are contributing to the calls for service, the intake, all of that. So, forgive my spelling, Juliana. You would have spelled this correctly. Really, we work with our contracted partner, Contra Valley Paws, that they do a lot of education and outreach around adoption, foster, all of that. And so I wanted to really focus on what the city topics include, which is, of course, the legal requirements, which we've discussed at length, any wildlife concerns, anything around community cats issues or resources needed there. We try to do a lot of work around kitten resources, especially this time of year. And then, of course, we've recently been doing a lot of education around intake and our intake policies and making sure everybody has the current information on that. So that's really where the city role of education and outreach is going to fall. And we do that through a variety of mediums, social media, traditional media, local presentations. So we're going to the Lions Club, we're going to special interest groups. We hosted open houses for a bit. That's always available to be resurrected if we thought it would have, a better attendance. We also share a number of videos. Some are super highly produced and really professional looking documents coming out of our communications department. But I'm also currently doing weekly videos that I just film in my office and hold a kitten and just talk about the week and what we're facing and what's going on. And then a variety of community events that Animal Services is hosting, events like microchip clinics and resource fairs, but they're also attending events like we'll be attending our first Homeless Navigation Day that's coming up. So that is kind of traditionally where we've been sharing all of this information, and some current topics that are coming out. Of course, we did a bit of bite prevention awareness last week. This week is Animal Care and Control Appreciation Week, so we wanted to highlight our team there. We also do a lot of discussion around capacity and animals that are at risk of euthanasia. We're in a new normal of what that looks like, but it's certainly something that we are tackling. Any local requirements, like I mentioned, the spay neuter, the microchip, and any recent cases or incidents, like we had a cruelty case earlier this month where 9 animals were pulled off property in some of the worst conditions even our most tenured officers have seen. So those are some kind of current items. And one thing that we think there's definitely room for improvement is, although this is our traditional method of where we've been sharing this information, we would agree that some of this is real anemic, meaning we could be doing a lot more with traditional media. We could be doing a lot more with local presentations like visiting schools or whatever it may be. And it's just a matter of dedication of staff time, as we've mentioned. We hope to leverage kind of our messaging and how it needs to be shared with the Angelo State University. We connected with their communications department head recently, and those students are required to do a service project every semester. And so we're now on their list of eligible items, and we're really excited about what could come out of that, because it can be print media, it can be social media, it can be videos, it can be blogs, narratives, stories, and we're looking at getting content created out of there where it's, something timely, something that's happening now, and stuff that's evergreen. Like every March, we're going to be sharing stuff about kitten season. Every, fall, we're going to be sharing about something else. So we are hoping to lean on that partnership to really leverage existing staff and the finite amount of resources on the city side, and getting that additional support with our limited resources. We certainly don't have the funding to hire this out or have our own paid intern or paid employees. So we're hopeful that that'll create even more. And so I think we just have to have if we do something about bite prevention in April, that doesn't mean a lot of people saw it, and it certainly doesn't mean the people that needed to see it saw it. And so I think having, we shared all that on social media, but does it also need to be part of outreach and hosting events that we specifically talk about bite prevention? Does it need to be on traditional media where we're getting interview time and to build all of these out to a really well-developed communications plan just takes time. So admittedly, we could be sharing that in more channels, but that's kind of our framework for what it is right now. When we met with the subcommittee, we also talked about creating documents, of course, in English and Spanish that could be, hand-delivered or mailed to our target neighborhoods and say, did you know these are the things you would need to do if you own a pet? These are the resources available to you if you're in need of gaining compliance. And so we're working through a bit more of this in the subcommittee, but we think that this is a really important component and maybe our first starting point when it comes to overcoming barriers. That if we're knocking on doors, if we're in the communities, if we're at different Head Starts with a pop-up microchip clinic, pick up your kid from Head Start and bring the dog with you so we can make sure it's tagged to you. That's building rapport with our target neighborhoods and serving people that we may not otherwise connect with. So that's the gist of what we have before you today.
I'd like to state that maybe one of the things we should stress would be traditional media. I mentioned this a little bit in our last meeting, but I think there's a lot of folks in our community that might be an unintended source for the animal control issues, might not be wired to social media. They might not pay much attention to it, but traditional media in print or one of the local TV and radio stations, and possibly even something that sounds a little extreme, but maybe even a billboard or two that might draw folks' attention to the problem. Because I believe everyone is very well intended, and no one wants to see animals distressed, especially theirs. So that's just a thought that I've had toward this particular item of education and outreach. Are there any questions?
No, I agree. Some of the the older, and the subcommittee is going to meet again, and I'll even check on TV. Whether it's, I know San Angelo Live is not technically TV, but even the news, I remember Bob Barker from Price is Right. Something like that. Get them to promote it. That's things that we've talked about in our subcommittee.
Is there any other question or discussion about education and outreach at this time? Any public comment?
Yes, we have one.
Swing again. Just on the point of billboards and older people and people from certain socioeconomic groups may very well not be wired. I think we've got 8 major roads in and out of San Angelo. And I think billboards is an excellent idea, because then no one can say, I didn't know I had to have my dog spayed or neutered. And I'm wondering if you're going to have billboards, and I'm thinking of the electronic billboards rather than, if you got 8, you need 8. You've got 8 roads in and out. Electronic billboards, and can we partner with HEB, for example, and say, will you have a billboard in your car park? Can we have some signage in the pet food section of the supermarkets? Because if you've got a dog, you've got to get, most people go to the supermarket, some people may not. But why don't we put the most widely seen resources in the best places? So the road's in and out, and then no one can say, I didn't know, unless they're hermits and never go anywhere. And in our supermarkets, why don't we partner with our supermarkets and Walmart and HEB and say, can we have some signage at the pet food section so that people know? Because I think there are plenty of people, strange as it may sound, that actually don't know you are required by ordinance to have your pet spayed or neutered. I've met tons of them. I've got neighbours, and they're like, oh, we didn't know. I'm like, what do you mean you didn't know? We didn't know. I'm like, you know that letter you just had, that's completely legal. Oh, no, it isn't. I'm like, yes, it is. You've got to have your pet spayed and neutered. So there's still a lot of people who don't know by ordinance you have to have your pet spayed and neutered. Let's tell them, and let's reach the most people we can it's expensive, so let's use the resources that we can reach the most people with for the lowest cost. Not saying I want to be cheap about it, but Here's a billboard, tells you. Here's a notice at the pet food store. Just get people aware of it. They might not have the money to do it, so they might need help, but at least people can't say they didn't know. And if they do know, then the follow-up needs to be, here's where you can find help. If you can't afford this, if you don't have transport, I mean, let's create a dog squad. I've taken people to the vet with their dog. I've gone and got pet food for people that, I don't do it for everyone, I just do it for the people who think really can't do that. They just taken a dog, driven 40 minutes outside of town, picked up a dog, taken it to the vet, got it neutered, taken it back. There you go. So we could have a dog squad. I'm sure there's plenty of people that could volunteer for that, but your first step has got to be making sure that people know, and a lot of people still don't.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could the subcommittee, excuse me.
No, I was just going to say, if anybody else has any ideas, because I did ask about HEB possibly handouts, and that's considered a solicitation, so they don't allow that. But I didn't think about posting, in the dog food section. That might be something.
The idea that the subcommittee discuss business partnerships more. I mean, I think that sounds like a great idea to me, based on where I come from, anyway.
We've talked about nonprofit partnerships and like the possibilities for collaborating and getting the word out, but I wonder if that could be a discussion that we had.
At our committee, we've got more to
It's a good idea.
discuss on that. If anybody in the public has ideas of education and letting people know, just forward it to one of us so we can talk about them.
Any other questions or discussions about regarding public education and community outreach for this meeting?
I don't.
Then moving on to follow-up and administrative issues, and I'll say it again, the nuisance animal definition. Have we made any progress on that?
I reached out to legal recently for their progress, but I also have it slated for our next agenda as well, because you'd requested it.
Very good, very good. Any administrative issues before we adjourn?
We mentioned it briefly, but it is National Animal Care and Control Appreciation Week, so call your favorite shelter worker, ASO, and just thank them for what they do.
I have a quick closing question for Morgan. Do you, in fact, have a donation fund at the animal shelter for spay and neuter?
Yes.
And is it served well?
It's not rich, if that's what you mean.
That's my point.
We have about
Is anyone donating to it?
We have about $600 in it. We opted to spay a pregnant dog recently with it because we didn't want her to be at risk of euthanasia, and we didn't want her contributing to capacity. So that probably spent half of it right there
So it's out there.
for recipients to, if y'all want to donate to that, we appreciate it.
Any other questions? You've been so engaged with us, I think you can.
Hang on, because we're not on an agenda. Here's my comment. How many people here knew there was a fund by the animal shelter?
I'm sorry, we're not on an agenda item. I defer to Kathleen that we can have a conversation, but it's not on the agenda, so we wouldn't be able to discuss it.
Well, with that said, is anyone make a motion to adjourn?
I'm moved to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. You want to call for the vote?
Yeah, so calling for a vote for the meeting to adjourn.
Yay.
Aye.
Aye.